Always work within your client's tolerances. The stretches we're doing are gentle, but too much work in a damaged area can end up pushing a chronic injury into an acute phase real quick. We're going to work passively at first. You'll need to learn your client's passive range of motion first, and this is an excellent way to do it. Make a note of approximate degrees of flexibility and write them down in the objective section of your SOAP notes. This way, you have a solid baseline to judge progress. Only do active work when your client feels comfortable doing it. I personally wait a few sessions before doing any active work whatsoever, just so I fully understand what effects the passive work has on the client. If the passive work makes them sore, active work will make it worse. I generally use a progressive 10, 15 to 20 seconds duration for the timing for the stretches. Clients with a fresh case of whiplash may not be able to tolerate that. So in the beginning, I work it more like range of motion than I do stretching, but I take it slow and measured like I would during the stretches. And we'll work my way up to the actual stretching using the 10 to 15 to 20 seconds progression. And along those same lines, and in the beginning with a fresh whiplash injury, I'll move the client's head to their natural stop point. That is the point at which the neck stops moving freely and goes into the stretch. From there, I'll move it deeper only if I think the client can tolerate it. But if I don't, then I'll hold it there at that point for the duration of the stretch, moving it back to a neutral position after each iteration. Especially in the beginning, we don't want to focus on specific muscles for the stretching. So the stretching we're going to do right now is based strictly on the range of motion of the neck. First one we're going to do is extension. So we're going to start with the client supine, and then we're going to have the client scoot towards us, towards the end of the table, so that the head is resting comfortably in our hands, but off the table. And what we're going to do, cradling the hands in our heads, we're going to slowly lower the head down to the natural stop point. For her, it's right about there. And we're going to hold this position. Obviously, if it's a healthy neck, we're going to take it a little bit farther just to engage the stretch. But in a damaged neck, specifically with a case of whiplash, we're dealing with inflammation, we're dealing with whatever sort of muscle damage is in there we may not know the extent of. So we want to be a little cautious in the beginning. And so we'll take it on back. And we'll hold, and then we'll bring it back to neutral. And we'll bring it on down again, and we'll hold. And we'll bring it back into neutral. All right, let's go ahead and scoot back down. I'm always a big fan of using 3 iterations to start, but again, it all depends on the tolerances of your client. When extending the cervical spine, make sure you're watching their eyes. In this position, compression of the vertebral artery may occur, causing a condition called nystagmus, or dancing eyes. If you notice the eyes are bilaterally bouncing from side to side or up and down, this is a pretty good indication of vertebral artery compression, and you'll need to return your client's head to the neutral position. For lateral stretches, we're going to start with the client supine and their head resting comfortably on the table. We're going to take one hand, place it underneath the head, and the other hand resting against the shoulder to brace. And of course, from there, we're going to move the client's head into lateral flexion and hold to their natural stop point. Go. Depressing the shoulder slightly, and then moving the head to the contralateral side. We'll hold. bring it back to neutral. Release everything. I'll go back to press the shoulder, move into lateral flexion one more time. Release. And for the last time. Good. And bring it on back. Now, many folks like to do a cross-handed variation of this where they place, say, the right hand on the left shoulder, like so, and the left hand behind the head, and then push the two structures apart. But I found when dealing with an injury like whiplash, it's far more comfortable for the client to have a hand under their head supporting it through the motions. I also find it easier to control the stretch this way since range of motion is very likely limited. Though to be fair, it's much easier on the therapist if they have a rolling stool to sit on while doing these stretches. For stretching the posterior structures, that is to say, moving the head and neck into hyperflexion, we're going to start with the client supine, their head, once again, comfortably resting upon the table. We're going to cradle the head in the hands, gently lift up, and then move out and towards the feet. Notice I'm standing up. I find it a little easier to gain leverage this way, also to control height using my knees. Now, when we do this, we want to do it more in an elliptical motion where we're pulling out and down, like so. So it goes this way instead of chin straight into chest, that way, or straight down. The ellipse will create a little more space in the spine and give us a better stretch. Also gives us a little bit of traction, which always helps in cases like this, unless, of course, it reproduces the pain. Up and down. Back to neutral, and up and down. Remember, we're always going to work within our client's tolerances. As a client becomes more comfortable with the work and their neck starts healing, you can begin to rotate the head a little bit while doing the stretch to isolate different structures. The last stretches we're going to do today are rotational stretches. So we're going to start with the client supine, her head comfortably resting upon the table one more time. We're going to stand behind the client, cradle the head with both hands, and turn the head to either direction, left or right, until you hit their natural stop point. We're then going to hold and repeat in the opposite direction. Good. And good. Good. And good. Very good. Like with all stretches, keep it nice and slow and monitor your client's reactions. You'll know their limitations by their jump signs. You'll also notice that I do all the stretches on one side first and then I go to the other one. That's a preference. I find it works best for me.